Hello, Reshifters. Redshift doesn't support stereo cameras. So how can we make this work in C4D that does support stereo cameras? Now, you have to be aware of a few things. Since 3.5.12, we've introduced the native camera system. Okay, the native camera, it's tied to the scene, not to the camera. For instance, this scene has been created where I had this option on. Okay, and that means if I create a camera, there's no tag for it. Okay, but let's say I'm in a new camera system off, and I come here and I create a camera. This one comes with a tag. Now I already have an RS camera icon here, which is a bit different because I've created this icon in this system, which means if I try to use the icon from here, the camera will be broken because it doesn't recognize optical. Okay, so these two cameras are different. So the way you should work, okay, I'm gonna remove the camera. I'm gonna go for the native camera, and you can see here if I create a camera, this camera, it's a Redshift camera, right? Doesn't have a stereoscopic tab. Like for instance, if you're creating a camera, I'm just gonna create a camera crane and just remove everything. And you can see it has a stereoscopic, right? And you can use it to set up your scene and so on and so forth. It doesn't happen with the Redshift new native camera. But the old camera, let's see that, has a stereoscopic. That means I can copy paste the scene from here to there. Actually, let's just copy, okay, and paste it in here, right? So we're looking at the camera. Let's do a very simple animation. There's nothing fancy about it. So I'm gonna go for 10 frames, 0 to 9. Okay, and you can see here, I'm gonna just set a keyframe here, dolly in. Maybe like this. And set another keyframe. I should have keyframed the rotation as well, but you know what, doesn't matter. It's just a dolly. Okay, and we have stereoscopy. We can put this in symmetrical. It can be off axis or parallel. Most of them are parallel because you can set, then using depth, you can set the actual shift for the objects based on depth. Okay, so if I enable stereoscopy, I can see left, I can see right, and I'm gonna give it a symmetrical. Now the thing is, if you're rendering with C4D, with standard, it works, right? You don't have to do anything, it will create two images for each frame. Redshift doesn't. So how do I make this work? Well, here's a way to not necessarily hack it, but to make this work. Okay, now I'm gonna duplicate this twice. I'm gonna call this left. I'm gonna call this right, or L and R. Maybe it's simpler. Let's call it L and R. Right? And this will be my camera. I'm gonna parent them to the camera. At this point, they'll have zero transform because they're identical, right? Coordinate 0, 0, 0. You can see here there's a little snag. This might be animated. I don't want that, so I have to go and delete the track for both of them. Okay, because the animation comes from the plane. from the plane, from the camera, this parent camera. Now I can, of course, I can remove stereoscopic and look at the left and the right, which are way off. I have to zero them out. Okay, so left, right, let's call this center camera. Let's leave it RS camera, right? And it can be RS, let's say cam 1, right? Because you can have multiple cameras in the scene, and all of them you want them to be stereoscopic, right? So okay, fair enough. Now, of course, if you have multiple animated parameters for the bokeh or anything, yes, you can leave that on, but you need to have this off. Okay, if you don't want to parent them, you can still zero out and delete the animation and parent constrain them if you want. There are many ways to do this, but in this case, I'm just parented because at this point it's kind of a rig if you want, right? So okay, left, right, by how much? The idea is that this stereoscopic, and you can, this is the beauty of this, you can see the cameras that are created, right? And you can see that by moving this, it's a shift on the x-axis. Okay, so let's put this as 6. Usually it's in millimeters, right? About 6.3, 6.5, something like that. It's this distance between the eyes, the center of the eyes. Okay, so, well, okay, what do I do? Do I come here and type 3? Oh, just one of them. I type here -3 because it's on the left. Okay, but it's the opposite thing. So switch to that part, and the right would be -3, right? And there you go. Right, left, center. Oh, okay, that's all nice and dandy. And the director comes and says, let's change the eye separation. Okay, 7. For sure, after a week, you're gonna forget that you set this to 3 and 3, and you have to put it 3.5. So let's try to make this a bit easier by going in here and set a driver, come back to both of this, to the coordinates, right? And just for this, set driven as absolute. Of course, both will be identical, right? But it creates an espresso. So how does it work? We go to the range mapper and we make this 50, which is you divide the incoming value by 2, and then you do the same thing for the other camera, but you want a negative, so negative. So right, left, center, and you can see if I move, let's not show them in the UI because it might be a bit hard, right? So if I move this from left and right, you can see them, and most important, you can see if I go to the stereoscopic and I move this, you see how the camera moves? That's exactly what I want. Okay, now there are a few things that in this case, this is parallel, right? So you have to figure out whatever values are here. And you can see the following. These two cameras, this is show all cameras by the stereoscopic camera rig. But there's this guy and this guy, and you can see this is on the left. Well, looks like left. Probably this is inverted somehow, right? It should be left from my point of view, but nonetheless, right and left, right? And this is identical with this rig. So we did the right thing. This is moving in sync. Now, if you want placement parallel, it's okay. Now, things get a bit more complicated if this is radial, because at this point you're involving some rotation, not just this, right? But the zero parallax also matters, I think. Yeah. So this is kind of a focal point, okay, or focus plane if you want. But usually you don't want to do that. You just want depth, okay? So you can decide where you want your shift to be 0, and that's it. Okay, so if you want to implement that, then you'll have to compute a bit the rotations based on this distance, right? It's not super complicated. It's fine. And the same thing happens with the on axis or off axis, but usually you're going to use parallel, right? So at this point, we have a camera rig that goes, actually, let's see, right. This is left. I'm so sorry. This should be 50. Okay, and this should be -50. Don't know why I missed that. Okay, so center, left, we go a bit to the left, center, right, we go a bit to the right. Perfect. Now, how about setting up the render? Well, you know that Redshift can only render one camera at a time, right? So the way this works is by creating takes. So 1, 2, left, right, and we're gonna mark these, and all we have to do is say left camera, right camera. That's all. Okay, now there's one little step here, and we're gonna save this. I'm not gonna discuss multipass because it makes sense it will be the same procedure here. So I'm gonna say $project, which is the name of the scene, right? And at this point, I'm interested in the name of the camera. I can't use $camera because that will be the current camera. I don't want LNR. So I'm going to use exactly this, cam1. Okay. Then I'm going to use $take, which is the take name, left and right. And then I'm going to use $camera. Okay. And this will create, if I save the scene where I should be saving the scene, which is here. Okay. Now this should be creating a folder called Stereoscopic, and inside it should create a folder called cam1. And in there, you're going to have two folders called left and right. And in each one, you should have a sequence of images called L and R. Okay, so let's do this. You can't do render through render view. You can't do render through picture viewer. You have to use the takes, and you have to use it this way. Render marked takes to PV. So you see here, I'm going to have, I think I forgot to set the animation. And set those as JPEGs. So come here to the main, open this. Let's set JPEGs output all frames 0 to 9. Okay, and then render mark takes to PV. And you're going to find that we're going to create a folder here called Stereoscopic. There you go. Inside there will be camera 1, which is our camera. You can have multiple cameras, right, in the scene. And then the left camera, let's say. So then the camera is called L, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. You know what? Made a small mistake because I don't want you to wait until this is done. So we're going to make this a bit faster by going in here to the render settings, and we're going to disable GI, disable automatic sampling, and leave it at whatever it is default, and render all text to PV. This will be faster, way faster. Look. And we don't have, I forgot to put a light in the scene, I'm sorry. Let's do that again and do the right things. I can do a light, I can do sky and whatever. Let's do a rig, sun and sky rig. Okay, and do this again. In the text, this will be nicer, that's all. Although we don't have GI and the shadows are black, but we get all this, right? Left and right. And this will be overwritten. So there you go. This is the right. Let me just, okay, and then this is the left. And you can use them, of course, in comp and do whatever you have to do. You need, of course, depth if you want to shift days and based on a distance. But to be honest, yes, it's a bit of a hack, but it's a very simple one. You don't have to worry about anything. I mean, there is no math involved, there is no scripting, and it's just easy. Hope it helps. Happy reshifting. Cheers.